go.
And we are online.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joanna Rączaszek-Leonardi. I'm speaking to you from the Faculty of Psychology, University of Warsaw. And it is a great, great pleasure to welcome you to the opening kickoff meeting of our new 3-year Horizon 2020 grant. The title is From Social Interaction to Abstract Concepts and Words Towards Human-Centered Technology Development. And I welcome our guests on YouTube first. I'm sorry we had to divide the meeting like this, but I'm waving and everybody will wave to you right now. Please do feel that you participate. Write your comments, you can wave back to us, and your comments and questions will be observed by us and answered. Welcome our guests. First of all, our project officer and advisor, Charles de Chef-de-Bien from the European Commission. You can also
Hello. Thank you, Johanna.
I don't know if our dean is with us. Camille, are you here? I don't see, but oh yeah, Camille, hi.
Yeah. Great. Nice to meet you all.
Great to see you. I also welcome our administration staff. Thanks for coming. And of course, our colleagues from the faculty, from the university, and from other institutions. I hope that you will all join, help us, and also benefit from this project. Because this is not a research project, it's actually a project which is preparing the ground, theoretical and methodological ground for further research and for making the Warsaw University a stronger research center, but it will not happen without your help, of course. So first, let me show you the breadth of the expertise that we managed to gather in the twinning grant. And so I will introduce the hosts of those meetings and co-creators of the grant who are here in the studio with me. And this is from Sapienza University of Rome. It's Anna Borghi. I don't know if Carlo Lai is with you and Francesca Bellagamba. If you are here, please wave. Anna and Carlo are professors at the Department of Dynamic and Clinical Psychology. I will be saying affiliations for you to see how broad expertise we are trying to merge here. Then University of Manchester, and here is Angelo Cangellosi.
Hello.
Professor of Machine Learning and Robotics, Department of Computer Science. Then there is Thea Cameron-Faulkner, professor at the Department of Linguistics and English Language. And then from Aarhus University, Andreas Robstroff, who is an anthropologist from the School of Culture and Society, Department of Anthropology, Department of Clinical Medicine, and of course a founder of the Interacting Mind Center, and always an ideal for us to how to organize research. Christian Thillen, School of Communication and Culture, Cognitive Science, and Center for Semiotics, another expertise that we will need here. And Karsten Olsen, who is from the School of Culture and Society and also Interactive Mind Center. So you all guys have been a long time idols for us, how to think, how to do research, how to organize work. And I cannot believe that we are doing grant together. It's just fantastic. And I'm very proud that you devote your time to make our research at our university and faculty better. It's really amazing. And finally, our Warsaw team, I hope you are all here, people who also co-created the grant and whom I wanted to thank by this. And it's Albertyna Osińska, wave, Julian Zubek, who is hiding behind here, and he can probably wave to you later. Grzegorz Krajewski, our new project manager, Konrad Zieliński, all from the Faculty of Psychology, and I also welcome the administrative staff who was crucial for developing this grant, which is Anna Barcerzak, Kasia Szniszewska, Sylwia Stanicka, and Maria Cybińska. Welcome to you all, and let's try to. We made it. I mean, the competition was fierce. We made it. Now let's try to work to do it really successful. And I will now ask Charles. Charles, the chef de bureau, Charles, right? I'm not pronouncing your name as well as you are pronouncing mine.
No, you are pronouncing quite well. No, really.
Okay, so I welcomed you already, and I will ask you to just say 5 words or sentences from the European Commission.
Thank you, Johanna. So first of all, just like to say that I'm really glad to be the project officer for this project, because it is monitored, it is coordinated, by a Polish entity. This is the very first time I am monitoring such a project, because then this is actually the key issue of twinnings, is that there are very few projects coordinated by Polish entities, for instance. And I would have really enjoyed attending this kickoff meeting in Warsaw if it would have been possible in normal times, and having a walk in Krakowskie Przedmieście would have been really nice. You are very lucky to have a campus in the heart of the town, because usually campuses are far away, and here it is not the case at all. So lucky you. So just few words on twinnings, because then, as you know, TRAINCREASE is a twinning project, and the key word for twinnings is that it is an institutional networking. The official definition of twinning is that it is a twinning project strengthens a specific field of research in an emerging institution in a widening country. So Poland is a widening country, meaning that in FP7 we noticed that the new member states that joined, I mean, they're not new anymore because it was almost 20 years ago that Poland joined the EU, but countries from Central and Eastern Europe were not participating that much in FP7 actions. So for Horizon 2020, we decided to have a special program to encourage them. Emerging institution, I don't think that the University of Warsaw is an emerging institution. I think it would be a bit insulting to say so. So sorry for the definition, but it is considered officially, according to Horizon 2020, as an emerging institution. But okay, we all know that it is not the case. And the specific field of research, then this is what you said, Johanna. I think it is quite long, this official research field for the TRAINCREASE. I see the emergence, understanding, and use of abstract concepts and words in human interaction. Then the key objective of this twinning project then is to enable the Warsaw University to increase its visibility in the European research area and also worldwide, and to strengthen its research and innovation potential. So then for this purpose, it is building a specific network with 3 international leading partners, then the University of Sapienza, Aarhus University, and Manchester, that are experts in specific field for the overall research field of this TRAINCREASE project. So as you know, this is not a research and innovation action project, meaning that there will be no new knowledge. Actually, the core business of the project is not to create a completely new knowledge, is to set up accompanying measures for networking in this case. That's why the budget of this project is relatively low. In research and innovation action projects, we have budgets like 6 million, even more. And here, I guess it's 900, not even 900,000, it's 899, yeah. So that's why the budget is relatively limited, but it's still a 3-year project. So it means that there is actually a far-reaching goal, because you need 3 years for setting up these networks. And we have then, as I said, 4, I wouldn't say 3, but 4 leading entities, because the University of Warsaw is definitely also a leading entity, but it just comes from a country that has not participated enough in the last research and innovation actions. So I think that's all. It's quite broad, but it's just to give an overview and the context of the TRAINCREASE project.
Thank you so much. That's perfect. And I think, well, we still have a long way to emerge, I think, so we can be considered an emerging institution. and especially comparing how we think about research and research organization at our partners. So I sometimes feel very emerging. I don't know about the rest of my colleagues at Warsaw University. But you said it's not a research grant and no new knowledge is being generated, but I think it's difficult that no new knowledge is generated when some minds come together. So at least we will not make new research, new data perhaps, but by working on our data that we already have and open projects that we already have, we are striving to make a contribution to the field, to develop the specific field of research. So I'm very, very happy that this very wide expertise came to our grant, because I would like to give my colleagues the background and why we think that you all can fit and help us from Warsaw University, and not only from Warsaw University, because well, as you saw, our research field that we will try to develop by integrating our expertise, not by new research, is that on the role of sociality in abstractness, in creating abstract concepts and words. And as you could see, in order to tackle this very, very difficult concept, we need a lot of expertise. And we have people here from anthropologists, through linguists, to psychologists, to semioticists, to cognitive scientists, to computer scientists and roboticists. And I think it's just phenomenal, but this is needed to make progress in this very, very, very basic research field. Yes?
So sorry, Joanna, just indeed, I mean, what I said is a bit not exactly what I wanted to say, meaning that there will be a new knowledge for sure, because any research project funded within the framework of Horizon 2020 has definitely the goal to issue a new knowledge. What I wanted to say actually is that we are supporting those 4 universities in creating this new knowledge, meaning that the project is just, let's say, a set of accompanying measures. We are not funding actually full research-oriented actions, whereas for research and innovation action, we are actually funding those research activities. So we are enabling you to create a new knowledge, but it's just a supporting action. That's what I wanted to say. Sorry, it was a bit misleading what I said.
I think you said it correctly, that we are not evaluated on the new knowledge. We are evaluated on our key performance measures, which is our papers, our new grants that we are going to then, after this project, perhaps secure, which is even better because we can be really risky in our developments. And I think that we really need this because, as I told you, this research on social basis of abstractness is in a sense very novel, what we are trying to do. Because usually we thought about, in cognitive sciences especially, we thought about abstract concepts and the difficulty of understanding abstract concepts and abstract words in terms of how they are grounded in our world. And usually, because we were thinking about individual human computational mind, we thought about those abstract entities as symbols that needed some grounding. And now here, people that are gathered here are, I think, bold enough to also see the other route to abstract concepts, not only to find their meaning or to find their grounding, but rather start from the very basis, from the sociality, from the interaction, and then from continuous processes, and then build up from the sociality, from action, from interaction, from continuous processes to abstractness. And this is a route that is maybe a little bit forgotten because we have assumed that symbols exist in the minds for the last 50, 40 years of cognitive sciences. We need to move a little bit back to recover, great fathers such as Jerome Bruner or Vygotsky or Merleau-Ponty or maybe William James, and to hop back from the era before a computer metaphor of the mind and remind ourselves that we are deeply social, deeply interactive, deeply acting beings, and then And then, the problem becomes not the grounding symbols in sociality, but the ungrounding symbols from sociality. So how come from our interactions, all of a sudden some abstract entities emerge? And we just have this great hope that, it's very difficult to ground abstract symbols because you think already in abstraction. When you try to unground, you hope that they will retain the values that are there, that they will never unground completely, but that the values and the main reason why they are emerging and guiding our interactions will be recognizable. So this is this kind of complementarity that we are striving for. And what is important is not that we say, okay, you guys are wrong. For 40 years, you've been wrong in cognitive sciences thinking about abstractness and symbols. No, we don't have the right and the wrong way to think about abstract symbols. We would like to create this complementarity, the complementarity between the grounding of abstractness in our knowledge and interaction, and how the processes of ungrounding or of abstractness as a process grounded in sociality is really something that we strive from. So as you can see, it's an extremely basic research, and that's why it's at the roots of everything that we do in psychology for sure, but also in anthropology, in studies on culture, in studies on language. And at our faculty, we have a lot of people who work, for example, in understanding emotions and emotional words. That's one example. Understanding of economical concepts such as ownership, for example. Understanding of numerical cognition, which is obviously an abstract, relies on abstract concepts. People who work on stereotypes and prejudice, which is also a kind of weird abstractness that we want to think if it's, when it's harmful and when it's not. So we just hope that also we have people working on multiple languages, using multiple languages, which are kind of multiple forms of abstraction. So we wanted to, you said the title is so long, but we sort of wanted to retain it very comprehensive to help the most people from the Faculty of Psychology, but also from Warsaw University and vicinities to join us, to contribute and to help us in this complementary endeavor and also to benefit from it. So this meeting is actually about this. It's about showing you what's in the store, showing you open research and opportunities to join. And it's just incredible that there is a grant, especially for us to become better in this field. And that you all guys are here to help us. So I wanted to welcome everybody again. Thank you that you are here. Declare officially that the project has started. Well, it has started on January 1st, but now it's for everybody, and show you what we have in store within this project for you that actually everybody can join. I will share my screen right now. Tell me if you can see it. So this is basically it. The program will run for 3 years, starting January 21 until December 23, and here are the two complementary roads that we ascribed University of Manchester and Rome for their history of research more to the grounding route, and I don't know if Andreas and Christian and Karsten, if you agree, but you are a little bit more on the ungrounding road. And here is an overview of the whole project, but I won't go into details here. But here, this upper part is about developing this new field of expertise, working on what abstractness is, what is the role of sociality in abstraction, how to think about it in various fields, language development, for example, or up to computing and communicating with artificial intelligence. on the level of institution, there are specific tasks designated to make us better in research, to make our publications more successful and higher impact, and also to make those changes sustainable within the University of Warsaw. Here is our emergent property. I think we, for example, our researchers are great, with great potentials. Our administrators are great. Administrative staff for research is amazing. But I think that we can learn a lot and also, I mean, stamp our feet and be recognizable in Europe, because, you know, having experience, as you said, well, we are not so much worse. So how come our key performance indicators seem to be a little bit lower, and we would like to put a stop on this. So there are also special tasks designated for us to become better and more visible researchers, for our administrators, for administrative staff from research to learn about the processes, how to make them more efficient and learn from their colleagues. And those things that are open to everybody, or semi-open, as in the case of research exchange and visits and some workshops, will be as follows. So some will be just organized meetings, and we plan one conference very soon in March already, 4 workshops, 1 summer school. We will try to bid for very good, maybe IEEE summer school in robotics. Then we will have staff and early stage researchers visits, which will be designated to develop very specific topics or problems, administration exchanges on the transferring the expertise in research management, in making us more successful, attracting and managing fundings, and micro-twinnings as well, which is a sort of a, how do I say, the distinguishing property of our twinning. Here is the overview of the conferences and workshops. This is what you can participate in, and let your students, PhDs, postdocs know about them, because we are going to open them for at least some parts of them to become for the whole community of the Faculty of Psychology and the University of Warsaw to benefit from that, and also our collaborators from partners. So the first conference is the Fresh Perspectives on Abstract Concepts and Theory Building, which is already in March. We have 18 leading scientists in abstraction, research on abstraction already contracted. And I don't know if something changes, maybe it's 20 already, but we strived for this number. And of course, you will receive links to participate in the open parts of those lectures. Then 4 workshops on developing methods and making them compatible with each other. So first of all, the cultural evolution in the laboratory, how to experimentally investigate the emergence of abstract thinking in Aarhus, automatic data capture and nonlinear methods, it's Warsaw University, experimental designs for the study of abstract concepts in interaction in Rome, and computational approach to abstract concepts and words, which is Manchester. It's both developmental and robotics and computational oriented expertise. Then the summer school in human-robot interaction that we will plan, and with a closing session, which will show the conclusions from developing our framework as a value-based abstraction on the basis of social interaction. What conclusions can we draw for robotics and human AI coordination? And then last but not least, the workshops of the University of Warsaw administrative staff at partners. And this will be also organized workshops, but in addition to the visits that I mentioned. And then micro-twinnings. Micro-twinnings are a little research team that we would like to compose out of our early stage researchers, meaning our master students, PhD students, and postdocs, supervised by our partners, on specific topics within this research area. So it's for piloting research areas, complementarity of methods, trying out various stuff. So different compositions of little groups working together. Now we are experts in remote collaborating, so I hope it will be even more possible. Topics will be either proposed by us after our workshops and meetings, or they can be bottom up. If you have a great idea, for example, how to understand the concept of emotion, or how to understand the ownership concept, and you would like to work with us, we are more than happy. And then we can realize those within the instruments that are already there. So such as research labs in cognitive science program, such as term papers or empirical papers in psychology. And of course, master thesis may be more appropriate because it's mostly for graduate students. Calls for those micro-twinning projects will be out very soon in March, June, and September. And of course, they will be advertised on our pages and wherever we think it's appropriate to reach to you. This is basically it. We will send the presentation, so you will have those contacts and more links, probably also to our website, which will be designed very, very soon. And for now, we have 2-3 minutes left. So I don't know if any of the partners would like to add something. Did I forget anything? And if you have questions on YouTube, please. Konrad, if you want to. Okay, we have a lot of people there, so wave. Thank you from Joanna Jurevich. Right. George Lakoff, Mark Turner. Yes, these are all people who understand that embodiment is so important. Not so much sociality, I would say, some of them, but some of them are definitely also zoomed on interaction. Okay. Anybody? If not, I will then move to, as I said, what we are going to do in the next hour is to show you the open research projects and possibilities to join and to strike interaction, to have connections within 2 of our partners. And there will be a short break, 30-minute break. Sorry, such a short break, but we don't want to keep you for the whole day. It's very difficult as it is. And then we will have a short word from our vice rector for research at the University of Warsaw, who couldn't make it to the morning session. And then 2 other partners will show their research. So Anna, I think you are the first. We've met with Anna at the Bologna University more than 10 years ago. And we planned to have research on abstract concepts since 2010, I think. But somehow Anna got much more ahead. So you can see that we are still emerging. And Anna, so the floor is yours.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Joanna, and everybody for making this possible. I think it's a great occasion. I'm going to talk about some ideas on abstract concepts. So a brief outline of what I'm going to talk about. I wanted to speak very briefly about our proposal, theoretical framework according to which abstract concepts are grounded in the social dimension, and speak very briefly in the first part of the talk of studies we have already performed. But then in the second part of the talk, I want to focus on what we are working on, so open studies and eventual possibilities for collaboration. So first of all, we distinguish between abstraction and abstractness. So when we categorize, for example, animals, there is some kinds of abstraction. we instead focus more on abstractness. We have focused so far on abstractness, that is on abstract concepts like freedom, fantastic, truth, etc. We do not think that there is a discontinuity between, there is a dichotomy between concrete and abstract concepts. Rather, we think that they are related and there is a continuum. But we think that the most abstract and the more concrete concepts are grounded in a different way. So concrete have objects as reference. Abstract are more detached from the five senses, even though interoception might play a major role. Abstract concepts are more complex. They are more variable across participants, across situations, and they are more heterogeneous. So they have less common features compared to concrete concepts. Actually, you mentioned embodied and grounded view. We started from this, arguing that embodied and grounded view have provided a lot of evidence on concrete concepts, but not on abstract. So we think it's a challenge to address this for us, not only for embodied and grounded view, but also for all views, because it's a very sophisticated and important human ability. So we think it's really important to address it. We have some criticism pertaining embodied and grounded view. They focus more they didn't focus much on language and abstract concept. They thought that language and words were somehow only pointers to objects in the words, or they provided a shortcut to meaning. Whereas we think that words can be inner tools and social tools that facilitate social interaction, that change our cognition. And we think this is important, in particular for abstract concepts. So this is basically the framework. And so we have proposed this view according to which words are social tools that has some 4 tenets. The first tenet is that all concrete and abstract concepts are grounded in sensory motor experience, but for abstract one, linguistic and social information is more important. First, during their acquisition. So, for example, this is how a boy might acquire the concept of ball. It might be quite easy because he has experience with the object, whereas it must be more difficult with a girl to learn what is fantasy without having the help of someone else. So basically, the idea is that linguistic and social acquisition are more important for abstract concepts. This influences their brain representation, and this implies that during also use of abstract concept language, we activate language, and we might activate the embodied counterpart of language, that is the mouth. The 4th tenet pertains linguistic variability. That is, we think that because for abstract concept language is so important, they might be more variable across languages, and this might open interesting possibilities for collaboration. So what we did in the last years, we had a bunch of studies showing that the mouth is involved during abstract concept processing. Here I have a list. So many studies in which we found that if we respond, for example, with a microphone or with a device to hold in the mouth, we are facilitated with abstract concept, but not with concrete ones. This means that we activate language. So we are facilitated in tasks mimicking conceptual authorization, in tasks pertaining different kinds of processing. We are not facilitated in lexical decision, but we are facilitated in recognition tasks, etc. So basically, the idea is that the mouth and the language is important for abstract concepts. We also have a lot of interference tasks with words. For example, if you chew a gum during processing of abstract concept, you find them more difficult. If you pronounce a syllable, articulatory suppression, while processing abstract concept, you find more difficult. If you are a baby and you use the pacifier for long, you might find processing of abstract concept. It might take more time to process abstract concept than if you don't. So all these studies seem to show that language is crucial for abstract concept. This is one direction of research we have done in the last years. Another direction always related to this is, as I said at the beginning, we don't think that abstract concepts are something a whole, but there are different sorts of abstract concepts. So here we did an Italian database of abstract words. We asked participants to rate a variety of dimensions related to abstract concepts, the more classical ones like imageability, abstractness, concreteness, contextual availability, but also novel ones like body-object interaction, five senses, hand, mouth activation, interoception, metacognition, etc. And we found that abstract concepts are those that are acquired later, that are acquired more linguistically, and for which, this is an important point for us, we call it this notion social metacognition, for which we need more the others. Okay, on this basis, we distinguished different kinds of abstract concepts. So we have four clusters. Emotion, inner states that are more characterized by inner grounding and sociality. Spiritual, philosophical, like belief, which are more abstract compared to the other abstract concepts. Physical, spatiotemporal, and quantitative, which are more concrete, more sensory motor grounded. And self and sociality, again, that activate more inner grounding. So different kinds of abstract concepts, and the further studies we are making are based on that. For example, this is one example of a study in which we asked participants to evaluate the difficulty of concrete and abstract words with an interfering task. In one case, for example, they had to chew a gum to see activation of the mouth. In the other, to determine whether they whether they were good in detecting their hearts beating, which is a task typically used in interoception research. And we found that in the case of abstract concept, what is particularly important is interoception and activation of the mouth. So again, grounding in emotional experience, emotional interoceptive experience, and gum chewing. So far, this is what we have done so far, but now we think that we have to go one step further, and this opens many possibilities for collaboration. So we think that it's important to study abstract concepts in concepts and during their use. This is something that Larry Barshalow has said in a recent article. We need to study them in situated interaction. We are doing some joint action tasks. We are trying to study abstract concepts in conversations, minimal conversations so far, but we would like to expand it also. And we are doing some cross-cultural studies. Across the studies, we study both children and adults, so both in both cases. So let me start with joint action. What we think that when we process abstract concepts, we are more uncertain on their meaning. So we feel the need to search for this meaning. This might explain why it takes longer to process them on one side. On the other side, we think we might need more others. This is something we call social metacognition, and we think it can explain the mouth activation. So we activate the mouth because maybe we prepare ourselves to interact with others. So we test, and also if we ask people how much you need the others to understand the meaning of a concept, this social metacognition is very important to define abstractness. So this is a recent study which is under review, but it's open, so to say, in which we tested this hypothesis. So in order to understand abstract concept, we need more the others. Very simple task, a concept guessing task. Participants were presented with images, and they had to guess whether the word to which they referred, concrete and abstract words. They had a different experimenter for a concrete and an abstract block. Then they had a joint action task. Important, the experimenter gave them suggestions. So if they didn't guess, the experimenter gave them some cues to guess the concept. Second part, an interaction task, joint action task. They did this interaction task, this joint action task with an avatar, and they were told that the avatar sometimes the avatar was guided by each experimenter. So they had one separate avatar for concrete and one for abstract concepts. noticed that in the case of abstract concept, we hypothesized that they needed the other more. So the hypothesis is that if they need more the other in the guessing task, they were told that a further guessing task will follow the joint action task, then they will rely more on the other, on the interactive task. And so we measured synchrony in movement in this joint action task. And indeed, we found that in the case of abstract concept, there is smaller grasping asynchrony, so a better performance in the case of abstract concept. So basically, the idea is I need more the other person, so I move more synchronously with him or her, because I need more him or her to understand abstract concepts. So this is one possible direction. Other studies they are open. I'm not going into detail, I'm saying just the general idea. We are doing some studies with children and thermal imaging, and we have some preliminary evidence with children who perform a lexical decision task, 5-6-year-old children. We found that with abstract concept, there is a more intense physiological activity, which is compatible with the idea that with abstract concept, they need to rely on others more. So these are studies on interaction. We do also some studies in conversation. It's not a real conversation, it's a minimal conversation. So basically we present participants sentences, written sentences. It was an online study due to COVID. Sentences, and we ask them to respond producing a written sentence, simulating a conversation. So an example is, I made a cake, and they might, I thought about destiny, and what do they answer? And so, do you believe in fate? Destiny doesn't exist, etc. Or, I make a cake, delicious, with chocolate, etc. And then we code these concepts according to a variety of dimensions: uncertainty expressions, number of questions, type of questions, etc. I don't have data so far, but our hypothesis is that uncertainty will be higher in the case of abstract concepts. Participants will ask more questions. We are doing similar studies with in which participants are asked to create a post on social networks with concrete and abstract concepts to see which are the differences in this case. Other direction, so I say only the general direction. Another direction, as I said, we think inner speech is very important for abstract concept. Why? Because we need to monitor ourselves more. So we have some studies on articulator suppression, and we have some open studies on mind wandering. So suppose you have a very boring task, like you have to watch pictures and words, and to decide whether a picture is a square or a circle, but the circle appears very, very rarely. When there is a circle, you have to press a button. Your mind wanders. Does this happen more when the word associated to the picture is abstract or concrete? So we are studying this. Other areas open for collaborations. We are investigating abstract concept and cultural differences. So we have some cross-cultural studies. This, for example, is a sorting study in which Federico Darol made an app for a tablet, and participants do a very simple task. They do a sorting task, dragging words inside boxes of them, inside different number of boxes, 2, 4, 6, 3 number of boxes. And they insert the category level. So far, we have participants from Italy, Israel, and Iran, so quite different cultures. And we want to see whether there is a higher variability, both between participants and between cultures in the case of abstract concepts. And we have preliminary data that go in this direction. For example, here, there are preliminary results of a PCA with concrete concepts. As you see, Italy, Iran, and Israel versus abstract concepts. You see there is much more variability across participants and across cultures. So we would like to study this more. Other issue related to this. Cultural differences related to specific kind of concept. For example, we have some studies, Claudia Matsuka is working on this, on gender. So the concept of gender, is it abstract? Is it concrete? Is it flexible? Is it not flexible? Very simple task, free listing tasks. So writing words associated with gender. And the first study was on an Italian sample. This is published. We found that depending on your gender identity, sexual orientation, gender normativity, you produce different words. So, for example, normative individuals rely more on, use more words like male, female, use more opposition like male, female, man, woman, whereas non-normative individuals use more aspects like queer, fluidity, etc. In another study, always on gender, we compare different cultures. So we compare, for example, Italian and Dutch cultures. Again, feature listing on the concept of gender. Italian not progressive, Holland more progressive in gender-related issues. We found indeed that Italians focus more on abstract social cultural features, discrimination, politics, power, whereas Dutch participants more on concrete elements like hormones, breast, genitals, etc. Would be interesting to address this in further studies. So these are the analyses in case. Another issue, this is one of the last, I think. Another issue always related to the issue of conceptual flexibility. We'd like to collaborate on this. We did some study on COVID, obviously. So starting from the idea that COVID is a brand new concept. So we didn't know it before COVID emerged. And it has probably reshaped our conceptual representation. So we have an ongoing study. We collected data during the first Italian lockdown on many Italian participants on many different concepts. And again, feature listing. And we found that participants were asked to produce 5 words. And we found basically that COVID has reshaped our conceptual representation of illnesses. So there is not anymore a distinction between severe illnesses like tumor, for example, and mild illnesses like flu, but COVID has reshaped this organization. And we would be really interested in addressing this. How, I'm not going into detail, but here, for example, is an example of a network analysis, so of the pairs that co-occur more often and related to COVID. This is produced by Italian participants. For example, these are the most commonly produced words related to a variety of illnesses: COVID, disease, virus, tumor, fever, and flu. And we found, for example, that COVID is represented mostly in terms of fear, whereas in the other cases, other dimensions appear. So I'm not going into detail. So my last point was conceptual flexibility. Conceptual flexibility, we study also in relation to populations. For example, I don't know, we have this study with preliminary results showing that the representation of abstract concept changes during pregnancy. So we have a study on with pregnant women, online study on pregnant women, showing that they conceive differently abstract concepts, and particularly they think that their judgment of interoception increase during pregnancy. So to go to summarize and to go to the point. So basically, I've tried to summarize what we did before and what we want to do now. We are basically trying to work more on abstract concept and social interaction, starting from this idea of social metacognition. So because abstract concepts are more complex, I need the other more, so I need to rely on them more. We try to use some interactive tasks and to capture concepts more during their use. And we try to focus on conceptual dynamics and conceptual flexibility. So to see how concepts, not only abstract, but only concrete, vary across contexts, groups, cultures, language. And also in this respect, we do a lot of cross-cultural studies. So I think that these are possible areas where we can find ways to collaborate, and it would be great to find ways to collaborate. So I'll go back to my outline. So I try to define abstractness. I spoke about the theoretical framework we proposed. I said that so far we work more on language activation, mouth activation, and kinds of abstract concepts. And now we are working on more on social interaction, conversation, cross-linguistic studies, and conceptual flexibility. I went very fast, but just it was a choice to give you an idea of what we have open. Here I wrote Marie Curie ITN because yeah, one of the idea was to develop maybe these ideas within this project in order to build a Marie Curie. We spoke about it with Joanna in previous moments. And I think I'm done.
Thank you, Anna, so much. It's really a whole great range of issues that you are tackling, and definitely I can see that that we connect on so many levels. But first, I would like to give the floor perhaps to our guests on YouTube if there are any questions. We had to condense our presentations. I know it's not easy to fit your 10 years of work or even more into 20 minutes, but we have to, because the form of the meeting is such that you know, long meetings online are very difficult, but we are always there to help and to contact. Okay, there is a question from YouTube. A PhD student at Aarhus University. Could you say a bit more about what do you mean by inner grounding? That was my question as well. Excellent remarks on interoception.
Okay. Thank you. So inner grounding, I'll go to one of the slides to give you an idea. Okay, so basically, I introduced inner grounding here, so I make an example to clarify. In the case of this study, for example, we asked participants to rate whether abstract concept activated interoception, metacognition, also social metacognition, and emotions. And actually, in this PCA analysis, we found that this dimension form a component, and one component, we call this component inner grounding. We think that in the case of an abstract concept, you need to rely more on inner grounding. That is, on one side, you are more sensitive to the interoceptive dimension. On the other side, you use more metacognition to monitor your knowledge. And on the other side, inner grounding, you use more inner speech. Inner speech can be an instrument you use to monitor your knowledge. I don't know whether I answered.
Maybe just a follow-up to this question is the question about emotions. If this inner grounding component is somehow stronger, how could we study that?
How could we study that? Can you repeat, Joanna? Sorry.
I was just wondering, you know, because I wanted to ask at bottom, but we can skip that because the interoception seems to be more connected with emotional concepts, abstract concepts, but are names of emotions. And I was wondering if there is a difference there, for example, in inner speech, because you don't need inner speech when you feel something really. But
yeah, I agree. I think we think that. There might be a distinction within abstract concepts. So more emotional ones are more embodied and less abstract, so to say. So in that case, we think that inner speech and metacognition might play a less important role because you rely more on interoception. And this is actually what we also found here. You see that there is that more emotional concepts are activate more interoceptive aspects. So I think the two might be disentangled. So interoception on one side and metacognition on the other side.
Okay, thank you. So now we have a question from our room. Christian, you had a question?
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
So thank you, Anna. This was an amazing tour de force of theory and studies. I was wondering, so it seems that you're kind of quite consistently talking about abstraction as, you could say, a property of concepts or even of words. But could you imagine that actually people could be using words but having very different levels of abstraction when it comes to the representations that they are associated with, right? So one person could be using a fantasy, having a very vague, very abstract kind of representation of the meaning of that word, while someone else could maybe have, you know, a different level of abstraction. So do you, is that kind of a component somehow in your research that words may not always kind of be associated with a distinct level of abstraction per se, but different people might be, you know, having different levels of abstraction in their kind of representations that are elicited by the use of these words?
I totally agree, Christian. I think that one study that addresses this is the study on gender. So in the study on gender, somehow, what do we show? That the same concept, the concept of gender, is conceived differently depending on the population, for example. So if you are, I don't know, if you are heterosexual, you conceive it at a certain level of abstractness. If you are not, at a different level of abstractness. If you are, what is interesting is also that, for example, in a more conservative culture, like in relation to the gender concept, like Italy, you conceive it more up at a more abstract level, whereas in a more progressive culture, you conceive it in more concrete terms. So I think that's a very interesting point, and I think it would be interesting to develop this issue also in relation to individual differences. So that is. So I agree.
I think this connects also to a question that was asked by Professor Jurewicz on the YouTube, but she asked also a very interesting question, which is also close to my heart. What is the relationship between the abstract concept and its sign, like a word, verbal or non-verbal? And can we say that we sort of have more meaning in the concept than in the sign? How to disentangle the two?
That's a difficult issue. That's a difficult issue, and I think, yeah, this is part of the work we can do in this project. So it's a very difficult issue. Also, the relationship, addressing the relationship between concepts, abstract concepts, and abstract words. So in some cases, we use them interchangeably because we often study and address abstract concepts through words, but that's not so straightforward. So I agree that it's a problematic issue, and as abstractness, the definition of abstractness is problematic. So we are dealing with very subtle and distinction that are difficult sometimes to disentangle. So
I think this is a perfect meeting point between us and Professor Jurewicz. Please join us in this effort. And also, well, maybe one of the reasons why our title was so long, you all remember, right? When we were struggling to make a shorter title and to choose between the concepts and words, and we were going back and forth, and Angelo said, no, just put them both. And he was, of course, right, because this is one of the major problems. And yes, let's do that. And I hope that also you could see that the expertise that we are gaining in our cognitive science program are very fit to maybe join your analysis of concepts in different cultures. We have students with a lot of expertise in computational linguistics and representing languages in vector spaces and so on. So I hope that a lot of this can be merged. Okay, Anna, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks to you. Thanks a lot.
We have just touched, that was just a brief overview. Of course, you have all the publications listed, and the presentation and the recording will be available. So do contact us if you have any ideas. So now we pass to Christian, right? You are presenting for Aarhus. Okay, Aarhus University, where the Interactive Mind Center for Interactive Minds is set up, has always been our sort of paragon or idol, and how to organize also the work of very interdisciplinary milieu and very interdisciplinary groups. So Christian, the floor is yours for introducing what you are doing. And
thank you, Joanna. Can you see my presentation here? Yes, perfect. Great. So thank you so much for putting this together. I'm going to represent the Aarhus Note, and I would like to use this occasion to just a bit like Anna, bring up a few examples of research that we are doing these days, and with an invitation for all of you to join in. I think there will be kind of many overlaps of interests and opportunities for exploring new research paradigms here. So, but let's start just with some of Gary Larson's wisdom. So in the small joke here, the text says, the class abruptly stopped practicing. It was a chance not only to employ their skills, but also to save the entire town. And the funny part here is, of course, that these aliens that are attacking the town just happens to consist of planks and bricks, the two things that these karate practitioners recognize from their training, right? And I guess the question is, had those aliens looked a little bit differently, would the karate practitioners here have recognized that they kind of employ their skills? And I guess this is another aspect of abstraction, right? So the extent to which our representations of certain concepts have qualities that make them possible to transfer knowledge and practices from one context to another, right? So to the extent that we have formed kind of sufficiently abstract representations of what an alien is, we can kind of apply knowledge from one field also into a new field when we encounter aliens that might look a little bit different and so on and so forth. I'll actually get back to aliens in a moment. Okay, so what has been mentioned several times already is this this tendency in existing research to when talking about abstraction, to focus very much on embodiment, but maybe in the kind of solitary sense of having some certain cognitive mechanisms placed very much in the mind of the individual. So often abstraction is portrayed as the situation where, you know, you have an individual that have various experiences through life, and from those are able to kind of, from the token experiences, are able to kind of deduce some kind of more abstract representation or concept or category. We want to at least complement this idea with another, you could say, idea that put more emphasis on the interactive and social aspects of this. So let's imagine a situation where someone has a certain set of experiences, but she then meets up with someone who has another set of experiences of a particular phenomenon, and they interact. And as a consequence, you could say, of them sharing, or with the concept that Joanna has introduced, pulling ground. That is sharing their complementary experiences. They arrive at these shared representations that are you could say, more abstract. So you can kind of complement your own experiences with experiences from other people. And this is something that we have kind of tried to investigate experimentally. This also, again, prepares us to a situation where we suddenly, we are in a changing or in a new environment, and we meet new phenomenon. So here's a new token, and we are maybe better prepared to recognize this as belonging to a certain category. Okay, so I just want to give a few examples of some of the research that we have done in the past, but that are still kind of ongoing. And this is in order to kind of point to some of the mechanisms on the social level that we think could be kind of critical in, you could say, to facilitate or motivate or promote processes of abstraction. And one is the fact that we can kind of share or exchange individual diverse experiences. And I think actually diversity could be important here. So the fact that we do not come with exactly the same kind of experiences, but bring various kind of experiences into dialogue or into conversation might be a critical part here. And the other one is actually that dialogical reflection is also another, you could say, factor. Whenever people meet up and start interacting, it can give rise to kind of a new level of metacognition that allow us to get new insights and to discover things. Here's one way that we have approached this, actually by having experimental participants engaging in a categorization task, either individually or in pairs, where they actually had to collaborate on solving this task. And they would just be presented with these alien figures and asked how they wanted to respond to them. So this was kind of a learning type of situation. They could either, when encountering this alien here, ignore it, or you could say have peace with it. They could tap some kind of valuable jelly from it. They could decide to kill it if they thought it was dangerous, or they could either tap it or both tap and kill it. So there was 4 kind of categories, and they had to kind of base their decision on the looks of these aliens, and got either one or the other type of feedback here. And the way that they had to pick up on what kind of reaction was more appropriate was by looking for particular combinations of features. So these aliens differed, there were kind of a lot of them, and they differed on 5 binary features, having thin legs or thick legs, or eyes on stalks, or arms up or down, and so on and so forth. So by trial and error learning the particular kind of combination that would make them either dangerous or friendly or valuable or not, they could kind of pick up these rules. And then after a long training session, they would be presented with a transfer task where aliens looked a little bit differently, but to the extent that they were able kind of to represent these categories as in a kind of rule-like manner, they would be able to kind of transfer some of the experiences and make quite qualified guesses here. Also, we had kind of 3 different sessions with different levels of complexity, so the problem became harder and harder. And this was the kind of observations that we made, that in general, throughout the 3 levels of complexity here, groups seemed to have an advantage. They were had a higher general accuracy in making categorizations here. And when looking at the transfer task, they seemed also to be more better in kind of transporting their experiences into a new context and applying their experiences on a new set of stimuli that they hadn't seen before. So these results are credible. And this study here is available as a preprint, but is under revision. Also, what we did next was that we took all the conversations among group members and looked to the extent to which speech turns from the two interlocutors either would be more kind of similar in their vocabularies or more different. And actually, we identified there a tendency that participant pairs that were composed of people who use slightly different vocabularies when discussing these kind of categorization problems actually seem to have a slight advantage over people who have more similar or used more similar vocabularies. There we see maybe kind of an indication of the fact that to the extent that people bring different perspectives or intuitions into the interaction, they might actually be able to, you could say, better reach a level of abstraction that is, at least in this particular kind of context, helping them perform. We took these observations onto another study where we actually wanted to look closer at this level of diversity. So here we are actively manipulating diversity. We are presenting them with the same task. This time it's just a binary decision they have to make. Is this a friendly or dangerous alien? But this time we had, and we gave them, again, simpler feedback. But this time we had, again, condition where we had individuals. They were trained on one particular categorization rule here with one set of features before they then entered into a set of tests where actually the rules would change repeatedly. Then we had another situation where we had pairs where the pair members were trained individually on the same rule before we put them together and then had them interact. And then we had the important manipulation here. We had a situation where each of the two pair members were trained on different rules. That is, it was different features that were kind of combined to make an alien dangerous or friendly before we put them together and had them interact through a set of rule shifts here. So it followed kind of the, we were inspired by the Mince-Constant card sorting task, where each time that you had a certain amount of correct trials in a row, then the rule would actually change and you would kind of start over trying to pick up the rule. And then we also administered the Big Five personality test and some other surveys that I won't go into in a lot of detail. But what we observed here was, to step back one step here, the important part of this study was that there was actually one abstract meta rule that governed all the, you could say, the rule implementations in the experiment. So for all of the rules, we had feature A plus feature B or feature C making an alien dangerous. And what we just swapped was whether it was feature A was the arms up or down or the eyes on stalks or whatnot. So people could actually, or participants in this study could actually kind of become sensitive to the fact that there was some kind of underlying schema here that would be stable all the way through. And to the extent that they were able to pick up on that, they would be faster in recovering after a rule shift, and they would be better generally at learning the rules faster. So we had some hypotheses that pairs would outperform individuals, but also that diversity pairs would possibly outperform non-diversity pairs, as they would more readily, due to the fact that they come already with different experiences, maybe that would kind of help them get to this more abstract level of representation, and then they would kind of become sensitive to this underlying rule that would also make them faster at recovering from rule changes. And then one thing we also did was that we of course induced here diversity by training them on different rules before they entered into interaction, but we also measured another, you could say, index of diversity and personality using the Big Five, and we actually had some reasons to believe that that would actually not really do any difference here. Here are the results real fast. So indeed, we did observe that over trials here, in general, diversity pairs would have a steeper learning curve. Here they learned faster, they performed better in the task. And when we break it up and look at the different rule changes here, we see that quite consistently, they seem to be faster in recovering from a rule shift and learn the new rule in this particular experimental setup here, which tells us that maybe they are kind of more sensitive to the fact that there's this underlying rule governing the stimuli. We also did a number of other tests. I won't touch upon all of them, but training performance here does not predict performance of the groups, which I think is quite important, because it could be by chance that the individuals that into collaboration here already were very good at this problem, but that's not the case. That is, the performance benefits that we observe here is emergent from the interaction itself, that they are not predicted by the individuals going into the groups. Also, very briefly, I can say that when we then afterwards look at diversity in personality, that is not explaining any variance in our performance data. So this is the kind of diversity in experience that we are inducing by our experimental manipulation that is doing the trick here. Good. I also just wanted to point out this this other experimental paradigm that actually we have used in a former collaboration with Joanna. And this is another, I think, great paradigm for looking into aspects of abstraction. So this is a very simple problem. You have to help the little rabbit get to the carrots, and you have to be careful that you don't let the lion out so it go and eat the rabbit. And you do that by pulling one of the levers over here. Now, usually when participants are presented with this paradigm here, they will start thinking about this in very concrete mechanical terms. So this gear is pushing this other gear, making it turn in a particular direction. But they might actually, as they experience more and more of these problems, discover that this is an alternating sequence. So if you know you want this gear to go left, then it's just left, right, left. Then you have to pull the left one here, which is already kind of abstracting a bit away from the kind of causality of the and mechanics of this problem. But you can actually reach an even higher level of abstraction here. You can come to notice that every time there's an unequal number of gears, it's left. And here you're not really anymore considering any part of the kind of concrete implementation of the problem. You're just kind of using a rule, and that becomes particularly then critical when we in a late trial present this here. If you are still kind of relying on a very concrete representation of the problem, you would use something like 1.5 minutes or maybe even 2 minutes to solve this. If you are kind of at a very abstract level here representing this problem, then you can do it in 11 seconds. I think that was the fastest I guess our participant would do. Now again, what we have manipulated here is aspect of social interaction. So we have used this paradigm with individuals and pairs doing all the trials together. And then we had a third manipulation where we actually had people again start like acquainting themselves with the problem individually. So doing the first 5 trials individually before we set them together and had them interact for the last 5 or 4 trials. And what we observe here is, or maybe I should say that one of the ideas again here is that this gives the individuals a bit of time to form their own intuitions and their own perspectives about this. So when they enter interaction, maybe they can have a more reflected discussion and maybe come to notice that there's more than one solution to this problem. I guess what happens with the individuals is often that they are able to solve this problem quite effectively using manual, like low abstraction solutions or representations, but never discover that there actually could be more clever solutions to the problem. that is something that we thought might happen when people come and have slightly different intuitions and perspectives from playing around with the problem. And that actually is what we found. So individuals would typically use the kind of mechanical strategy here, or maybe they will find the kind of, they would discover that it's an alternating sequence and use the left, right, left, right, left, right strategy. Peers would have a more abstract representation often, but we saw that in this kind of compy situation or condition, we would have many more participants actually arriving at the counting strategy, which is the maximum abstract strategy here. And actually, unbeknown to Joanna, we actually have collected a new batch of data this late this fall on this particular task. So we're hoping to do more work on this. So we thought that here are just a few examples of paradigms that we are using these days, and that I think would be productive ways in which we could go and investigate aspects of abstraction in our collaborative setting here. And there's a lot of things that we could look into. For instance, something like near versus far transfer. We have now been manipulating bottom-up kind of aspects of diversity and these kind of things, but we could also imagine that we would discuss other manipulations that could kind of promote abstraction in these kind of settings, and so on and so forth. Also, I want to mention that we're also doing a lot of research these days on what sometimes is referred to as vertical interaction or transmission, right? So various kind of experimental paradigms where we try to you could say simulate aspects of cultural evolution and transmission. And here's from one of Carsten and Andreas' latest studies, where they have kind of set up an online platform where they can have participants coming in. For instance, in this particular case, they are doing drawings, so they are presented with a drawing and have to make a copy, either still looking at the drawing or from memory, as in this particular condition here. And then whatever the participant in this or this participant is doing is transferred to a new participant who has to copy that, and so on and so forth in that transmission chain. And that provides us with these kind of fantastic transmission chains that you see down here, where the same picture has gone through various kind of processes of repeated reproduction, where we can go and then and investigate aspects of the extent to which they change in complexity, also in abstractness, for instance, in conventionality. And so there's a lot of things we can do there. And this particular platform also is very flexible. So now we are looking at drawings, but we could in principle use it for other purposes as well. Now, these were just a few examples of what we could see would be kind of potentials for future collaborative research projects. Of course, as has been mentioned several times this morning, this is not just a research project. So I just wanted to mention that we are also responsible for other parts of this project, and we have identified a team of people at Aarhus University who are all involved in research management and research support that are looking very much forward to work with you in Warsaw. And this could involve staff visits, various kind of presentations on how we do research organizations at Aarhus University. Also the kind of support that we are organizing in terms of grant writing and grant participation, and a number of more concrete workshops that we are organizing in Aarhus would be available also for staff members from Warsaw University to come and visit and participate in. So these people here look very much forward to also engage with research support staff from Warsaw University during the next 3 years. And that's all for me. I apologize for going a little bit over time.
Thank you, Christian, so much. We forgot to clap also for Anna, so let's do this for both. Sorry, these meetings are kind of difficult. I just would like to reinforce the last point, also from experience, seeing how really wonderfully this works in Aarhus, that the administrative staff and researchers, in a sense, form a team which is working, I think, more closely than in Warsaw, where we are all overworked, of course, and a little bit focused on our own tasks. And really, we have a lot to learn there, of course, also from the other two partners. But thank you for mentioning this. Okay, we have a couple of questions, and first from Urszula Kuczma from the YouTube viewers. Christian, did you consider measuring the divergent thinking in your participants? And
we didn't actually. No, we did not measure that directly. So, but we could definitely do that. So, I guess such a measure, divergent thinking measure, would, again, you could say, possibly target aspects of the individual, you could say, group member. So the individual group member's propensity to be able to think divergently. I think what is really interesting to get from these experiments is that we take participants, we put them in a particular context of interaction, and suddenly they do think more divergently or more convergently, you could say, in some so individuals doing the task alone in general simply do not really think as divergently as participants put into a particular kind of social context. I think that's the important observation here, but it would definitely be relevant also to maybe take more individual measures and see how they. So the measures that I think is the interesting observation that we do see is that when we take individual measures, they seem to explain very little of the variance in the performance of our peers in these experimental contexts, suggesting that what is happening there is really coming out of the interaction.
Very nice. Maybe already a small project here, checking for those diversity measures.
Yeah, definitely.
Julian had a similar question on sort of characterizing people on different traits than Big Five. Perhaps more task-specific measures, but I think this is related.
Yeah. So I didn't mention, of course, all the details. So we have the Big Five, and we also have another scale, which is called the intrinsic motivation inventory, where we do test a number of other things, but they are not, again, maybe not targeted particularly on the task relevant aspects here. They are targeting aspects of the interaction, and actually there are some of these measures that do significantly explain or explaining more variance in our data, but orthogonal variance to the experimental manipulation. So which is nice.
I just wanted to point out that your alien task is sort of like a machine learning task. Probably our students also.
It's a classification task in some sense, yes.
How to train the ensembles, if to train them all very similar or very divergent subsets and so on. Professor Jurewicz also asks, okay, why did you choose aliens? Couldn't you choose some more culturally grounded individuals like angels or
yeah,
or maybe
yes, definitely. I think it was a coincidental choice. We wanted, of course, actually to make a situation where people couldn't come very prepared and have very different levels of expertise already as they enter the experimental setting. So in that sense, it had to be some kind of new phenomenon that they would encounter, right? But it need not have been aliens. So it could also have been abstract shapes for that matter. Yeah.
Yes, and I think this question about the dialogue between the machine learning and your experiments is very, very pertinent. Also compatible with what our students seem to know. All right. Yeah, Julian says aliens seem to be popular in category.
Yeah, we are not the first ones. Actually, we were inspired by a study by Corder and Voigtlis called Conventional Wisdom, a paper where they had used aliens. I think that was one of the reasons why we jumped on that.
Yeah, but we could use some, you're right, maybe more ecologically grounded also entities. From Karolina Ziembowicz, what was the ways you observed that the pair members transferred their knowledge to each other? Were they doing this overtly or?
Yeah. So I actually, when I used the concept transfer, it was in a slightly different sense, right? So this was, you have a pair, they sit and they are presented with a number of aliens. They learn what are the features that are the kind of characteristics of the aliens that are dangerous or not. And then they are presented with a transfer task. That is, they're presented with aliens that look a little bit different. And we observe to the extent to which they're able to bring in their experiences from the training and apply that into a new kind of, in a new context where things look different. So that's, of course, then we're looking at aspects of their interaction. I'm not sure I used a transfer there about that, but we had people just sitting by the same computer and talking freely with each other in the first experiment, right? Or actually in both experiments. And then we studied their transcripts of their verbal interactions, right? So we don't know exactly to what extent the knowledge is transferred between participants, but we can see as an outcome of their interaction, new things are happening there. So, or they're able to solve the task more proficiently.
Okay, thanks so much. I hope that this discussion will continue also online, but remember about our conferences, and we will definitely continue there. Also, you can always write to us, and I think did you include your emails, and do you agree to
I hope you can share my email. I didn't put it in my slide, but otherwise, if you're going to share slides, I can put in emails for all the three of us, Andreas, Carsten, and I.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. We have time now for a quick sandwich. Sorry to make this so intense, but we will come back to the streaming in about half an hour at 2 o'clock. Okay. And so we can finish the streaming now, and thank you for coming, and do come back at 2 o'clock because the next two labs will be presenting their open projects and the collaboration opportunities. So thank you so much.
Great. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and participants of this meeting, dear guests from Brussels and from elsewhere. It's my great privilege and actually a pleasure to represent University of Warsaw at this twinning kickoff meeting today in the capacity of the Vice Rector for Research of the University of Warsaw. The University of Warsaw is not only the largest university in Poland, but also a leading research center in this country. The strategic objective of our university is to ensure a good position among top European research universities and international recognition. It involves continuous development and collaboration with leading world centers. Presently, the university works with as many as 800 international partners and belongs to about 100 global research networks. And it is a member of various consortia set up to conduct particular research projects. However, I have to say that among these collaborations, the Twinning project we are talking about, we are commencing today, holds a very special, I would say, distinguished place. This is one of the first opportunities for a university research team to participate in the institutional networking project under the Horizon 2020, which makes us a part of the international consortium, including 3 leading European universities. And that gives us the opportunity to benefit from the long time experience and know-how collected by those high-profile institutions which successfully combine training and research agenda. We are proud of this membership and we consider participation in the Twinning project as one of the primary vehicles which shall drive our Faculty of Psychology and, in consequence, the whole university towards the highest standards and best practices in the academic activities. The University of Warsaw is a place that fits firmly into the scientific map of Europe and the world, and it is determined to attract excellent international research teams, high-profile conferences, and to host both personally and virtually, as today, the best scientists from all around the world. These are the reasons why we are so much pleased to participate in the Twinning project, which shall lead its beneficiaries towards excellence in research and in research management through boosting our scientific performance and through teaching us how to become more efficient in our scientific work, how to address problems in various different ways, and eventually how to deliver better results, to name a few examples of future benefits. I would like to express congratulations and gratitude to our hosts at the Faculty of Psychology, and in particular to Professor Joanna Rączaszek-Leonardi and her team for the tremendous effort they have provided to create the project and to organize this meeting and eventually to put together the engaging program. The headline of the project reads from social interactions to abstract concepts and words. And a glance through the list of topics discussed today reveals diversity, amazing diversity of subjects and complexity of the challenges which we are facing. It also indicates the relevance of the goals of the project in the context of today's scientific exploration of the world through interactions and dialogue. I am certain that you will enjoy the long day of engaging debates and networking. And I wish you all a very fruitful and pleasant meeting. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Zygmunt Lalak, our Vice Rector for Science, I should say, for Research at the University of Warsaw. And thank you for appreciating that. I'm sure that we all will struggle to have results of our research, our very basic research, to reach such applications as better dialogue and better solution of the problems. So we are all prepared for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your understanding. We were talking also that you are a theoretical physicist, and we welcome all the expertise. We also hope that in the next meeting we will have an opportunity to see each other live.
Well, let's hope for the best future.
Let's hope for this. Thank you so much. We are returning after the break to further showcast the research opportunities in our respective research groups. So right now it's time for University of Manchester, Angelo Cangellosi, Professor Angelo Cangellosi and Professor Thea Cameron-Faulkner. Are you here, Thea? Ah, yes, yeah, I can see you. Excellent. So Angelo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a joint talk with Thea and me. So I will start with the computational aspects of the expertise in our university, and then Thea will talk about developmental approaches to the field. I'm going to give an overview of the approach, and you can see that even in the computational side, the cognitive robotics lab in the Department of Computer Science, we actually use a strongly psychological oriented approach. So although our main goal as computationalists is to design better robots, in particular to design capabilities in robots to use language, but not like an Alexa type approach, is to use language that the robot itself understands. We call this the symbol grounding problem, or in our case, the symbol grounding solution, let's say. So this is the primary goal. I say normally in my talks, this is 51% of my aim, but there is a remaining 49%, which is also an interest in modeling cognition with machines, with robots, and use these tools to better understand natural cognition, human cognition, animal cognition, and so on, which is exactly what we will be doing in this project, right? We want to develop better technologies, but we also want to understand cognition better using computational tools and robots in this case. So this will represent the robotics, AI, computer science element of the project. And then, of course, there will be the psychology and neuroscience, which includes, of course, Thea's contribution in the second part. And I'm going to give a very brief overview of two types of models we use here. The first one focuses on grounding concrete words, and then the next part will focus on grounding abstract words, of course, which is the focus of our project. The way we do this is we work in close collaboration with baby labs, the developmental psychology labs. So you will see an example in a moment of our very first study with Linda Smith in Indiana, the US. Then we did work with Jessica Horst in Sussex, the south of England, Flochen Catan in Plymouth, Marchetti, new collaboration with Milan Cattolica University, and of course, the collaboration with Manchester, two main researchers in the field, in addition to Thea Cameron-Faulkner. We also collaborate with Katie Toomey. We used to collaborate actually even before moving to Manchester with Katie, when she was also in Sussex. So you see in the bottom line a very simplified representation of some phenomena in developmental cognition for children. So the first year, this is about language, of course, language acquisition and development. The first year is primarily phonetic, discrimination and learning. Second year is about perceptual category learning and, of course, vocabulary learning for concrete words primarily. And then we look at more complex stages in the third year, which is language production, multi-word utterances, and of course, abstract words. And you can see here, we try to map these into experiments, and collaborating with these baby labs, we have developed many studies. I say here 5+, but by now we have many more parallel experiments, including straight collaboration between replicating human cognition experiments and then designing robots experiments. So this is a picture from a video from Linda Smith and Larissa Samuelson's lab a few years ago. They did an experiment where they showed that children actively use their body to even better learn to words. For example, in the case the object being named is not visible in scene. So by moving your body left and right as a child, you start learning to do some kind of mapping. And what we did, we also built a computational model, which is, I think, what I want to show now in the video.
So this is the ICO robot, and today we're going to teach it the language.
So first part is the